This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Leila Hernandez with American University School of Communication, and welcome to another episode of Faces of SOC. Before we get into the presentation, I would like to go over some introductory information to get everyone acclimated with the platform that we're using. This webinar is automatically muted, so your interface with me will be the chat box. So my first question is, can you hear me? Yes or no? If you can hear me, please type yes in the chat box. As this will be a very audio. Okay, excellent. I love it when the yeses start coming in. Let me just type just in case you can't hear me. Can you hear me? Yes or no? All right. Excellent, excellent. So feel free to type your questions there throughout the presentation, and we'll simply answer them as we go. Again, my name is Leila. Not only do I work in the School of Communication, or SOC for short, but I'm also an alum. I received my master's degree from SOC in 2010, so I'm happy to speak to you both as a staff member and as a proud alum. Today, I'm honored to be joined by SOC alum Alexis Janney. She graduated from the MA in Strategic Communication last May. Now, during today's webinar, I will speak with Alexis about her experiences as a graduate student at SOC and find out what she's been doing since graduating last year. And I will also discuss the MA in Strategic Communication, as well as the admissions process and financial aid opportunities. And of course, you are encouraged to ask questions as we go. Simply type your questions in the chat box. So without further ado, let's get into it. I would like to introduce everyone to Strategic Communication alum Alexis Janney. She graduated from the Strategic Communication program last May and was named one of Washington Business Journal's People on the Move in 2018. Lexi, thank you so much for joining me today. And could you confirm how to pronounce your name? I apologize. As a Leela, I apologize if I have been butchering your name for the past 2 minutes.
No, that's okay. Janney, either one. I usually say Janney, but I'm not offended if you say Janney.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
No problem.
All right. Well, I just want to go ahead and jump into my questions for you, if that's all right.
Perfect.
My first question is, why did you even decide in the first place to apply for grad school? And then ultimately, why did you choose this program in strategic communication at American University?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, I was actually a biology major in my undergrad, and a lot of people ask me how I ended up making the jump from a biology degree to strategic communication. And I loved the science and the analytic part of being a biology major, but I was missing the story behind everything, and I didn't come to that realization until my first job, which was working in an admissions office at my alma mater, Roanoke College, and I got to work really closely with both the PR office and the communication director in that office at the admissions office, and it was such a fun and challenging job to be able to come up with the right communication platforms, the right messages, how we're positioning ourselves as a brand, but also as a college and university that students would hopefully want to come and attend and kind of showcase the experiences that you would get there. And so that's really where I fell in love with the whole strategy behind communicating with audiences. And so I knew that my biology degree didn't quite get me to where I wanted to be in that field, so I had to look for ways to get there. So I started looking at graduate programs, and specifically in this area, in the DC area, because it's just full of opportunity, but not limited to this area. And so I saw AU's Strategic Communication Master's Program, and the reasons I chose it are actually it's a short list. It's a smaller school, and I wanted to be on campus. I loved my on-campus experience for my undergrad, and I thought that that was one of the main reasons why I loved it, and also why I felt like it was a successful 4 years there. So I knew I wanted to be on campus, which AU offered, and the professors that I got to see that were teaching the courses were both, they were a mix of working professionals and academics. And so I loved that. I loved that I was going to be able to work with people who were doing this as their day job or had done it as their day job for a number of years. And now they were teaching students the skills and lessons that they learned along the way. So um, in that mix was also really cool, relevant coursework that I would get to do. And I'm not gonna lie, I loved that I could do it in 1 year as a full-time
Yeah,
student.
absolutely. I think that that's definitely one of the biggest benefits of the program, not to mention all the
Yes,
other things you said, like rock star
exactly.
faculty,
Yes.
education.
Um,
That's really
I did,
interesting. Go ahead.
I, sorry, I did sit in on a class prior to making my final decision. So I came up to campus and sat in on a content creation course, which was phenomenal. And not only did the style of the teaching, the things taught in the class, and the professor himself made all the difference. And as soon as I left that class, I was ready to go. And I couldn't wait till September. So yeah, I will give that little anecdote as well.
That makes my heart so happy. I also like how your background was in like biology and the
Hmm.
sciences because I tell people, you know, if you majored in communication when you were an undergrad, great. You discovered this amazing field earlier than I did.
Right.
I was a history major, but so many
Yep.
people come to this program from so many backgrounds because they know that if to communicate about that issue, about that
Hmm.
field is such an important tool in this day and age.
Exactly. And I will say that the skills that you learn as a communication major, whether you're undergrad or grad, are so transferable. So it actually works out in my favor that I was a biology major because a lot of my current clients are in the environmental, conservation, and energy sectors. So a lot of that biology jargon and lingo and just knowledge comes back to help me. We do a lot of clients in that realm. But also, we have education clients and we have technology clients. And so I can use those skills that I learned from the communication degree across a number of different clients who are in very different sectors with very different goals as well. So, and the faculty at American come from diverse backgrounds. And that was something that was really encouraging as somebody who is a little bit anxious about having such a different background. I was wondering where I was going to stand when I got there, where was I going to be as far as, what did I need to learn and what was I missing and how difficult was that going to be for me? But having faculty that also had diverse backgrounds was super helpful in that. And there is a strong research component to communication. And so that was, of course, my easiest class, but coming from a research background. So, you know, it all comes together in such a nice way.
I can absolutely also tell that you worked in admissions before. You are fantastic. If you ever want to come back to SOC, feel free to move into my office with me.
Of course, feel free to use me as a resource. I love this kind of stuff.
So tell me about a particularly memorable class or a professor or just another experience from your time as a student that really stands out in your mind.
Okay, I have one of maybe each.
Oh yeah.
A particularly memorable class was probably my theory class. That was one of the classes that I was most concerned about because I was coming from a research background, and theory only extends so far with science. So I was really, really scared about this class. I didn't know how difficult it was going to be, but it actually ended up being one of my favorite classes in the entire program. And we learned, not only did we learn so much, but it was taught so well that we were able to take a theory, really, really comprehend it, and be able to apply it to like day to day and how it's working in the real world. And that was something that was so important to me. And I loved so much about this program is that it wasn't a disconnect between classwork and what you're learning in the class and how you operate in the field. it was so easy to be able to take those lessons and take the skills that we learned in class and jump right in and use it the next day at work. Being somebody who worked while I went to school, yes, it was a time crunch to be able to do a lot of things, but it was so worth it because you got to see it literally the next day after class of how you would use that skill or that theory in practice. And the classmates in that class were so great. We had such a diverse class. We all came from different backgrounds. We were different ages, different races and ethnicities and religions. And so having that holistic perspective of so many different people, particularly in our day and age, was amazing. I learned so many things, not only from the class and the curriculum, but from my peers. And that was another reason why American was such a great spot for me, coming from a less diverse undergrad. So it was one of the greatest things I got from this program, is learning from my peers. A professor, not only was Professor Doshi an amazing professor, she taught our theory class, but one of my favorite professors was actually Professor Kumar. I didn't have her as a professor, but I was her graduate assistant, and she is still a friend and colleague and resource for me today. I just texted her the other day about something, and she's such a great person all around. She it taught me so much about, the industry and my career trajectory, and was just really a bright spot all the time at my time at American. So yeah.
Wow. And for those listening, Professor Pallavi Kumar is also the program director of the Strategic
Yes.
Communication Program. So I had no idea that you were her graduate assistant. No wonder she raves about you so much to this day.
Yes, I miss her so much. We had the best time. And I loved working with her on, not only the lesson plans for her students, and even learning from her undergrad students because they were brilliant, but also some of the admissions and enrollment efforts that we worked on together, including this. So yeah.
Wow. If I understood you correctly, did you say you were working at the same time that you were doing this program full time, at the same
Yes.
time that you were working 10 hours a week as a graduate assistant?
Yes, ma'am.
How,
So
what, how did you do that?
it was a little crazy. So yes, I did my 10 hours as a graduate assistant, did the full coursework or course load, which was 12 credit hours a week, I believe.
Yeah.
And then I worked anywhere from 18 to 22 hours a week in the office. So, in order to do all of that and, stay sane at the same time, you just really have to plan your work. And that's actually our mantra at our office, which is kind of funny. But I just knew when my classes were. I was upfront with both my boss at work and my professors and said, look, I'm working at the same time. So if anything comes up, I will let you know as soon as it's on my radar. And it was just, it was just being able to know when things were due, when you had to get it done, and knowing that you had to be on at all times. And if you saw some of my calendars and planners, you would if you're a type B person, you would probably freak out. But I'm so type A that I have months ahead planned out so that I knew what days I needed to start working on it in order to get it done with the amount of time that I had.
I can see why you and Professor Kumar are such, I'm just going to say soul sisters. I think you guys have a lot of the same philosophies in life. That's amazing.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
a lot of prospective students ask me about the graduate assistant experience. Could you tell me a little bit about the work you did as a graduate assistant?
Yeah. So working with Professor Kumar, again, like you said, she is the department head, but she also taught the undergraduate senior level PR portfolio class. And I want to say it's kind of like the capstone course for them. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's one of the main classes at the end of your career as a student that you have to go through. And you basically create a PR portfolio with a team for a potential client or for a client. So it was really cool to help with that lesson plan, to help her decide what current cases were ongoing that might help them relate to what's happening in the real world at that time, that comes back to either a theory or a skill that isn't necessary in the communication field. So I got to help her with some lesson plans. I did a little bit of grading, but only on like small quizzes and stuff, which she always double checked. I wanted to sit in on some classes, but like I just mentioned, I was working and going to school, so our schedules didn't line up in that sense, which was unfortunate. And then because she's the program head, she organized some faculty meetings and things that, you know, would go on, like the itinerary for those meetings and
Yep.
what they were going to talk about. So I helped her with those materials and prepping those. And then also helped her with some of the graduate admission and I think a little bit of undergrad admission work. So, you know, doing a website audit and looking at what could be on the website that might be helpful, using my admissions background of recently talking to students coming out of high school and what they were looking for in colleges and universities. Doing some phone calls to prospective students and, you know, giving them both my my advice as a admissions professional, but also as a student who attended AU and also attended a smaller private school that's similar in those ways. So it was kind of we had our hands in a lot of different things, but it was really fun. And then some of the stuff that we did for the admissions was also geared towards digital and social too.
Fantastic. We were very lucky to have you here. We have a question from a participant, Arjun, who asked,
Okay.
and even though I'm going to be asking you, Lexi, about your job in a bit,
Yeah.
Arjun wanted to know where you worked while you were being a student and a graduate assistant. So,
of course,
about that, yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of serendipitous that I got a job at a PR firm a few months before starting at AU. So again, a little bit of apprehension there because I didn't have a full PR background and was starting a job before I got the schoolwork. So, but it was really great because I worked at and still work at a smaller, what they call a boutique firm. There's about 5 of us there, so it's really small. Like I said, we have environmental and energy and conservation clients. So my biology background was actually super helpful with those. It's called Greensmith Public Relations. We also have some public affairs work. So we work on the Hill. So we work at the intersection of public policy and media. So we actually use earned media strategies to drive policy, or if policy is in place or currently being heard, we try to use earned media to influence people who are maybe voters or legislators to see what our clients and what the general public have to say on those issues. In doing so, we write op-eds, letters to the editors, we do press releases for our clients, we do press events for our clients. So some of our clients have press events where they announce grant awards. So they're a grant maker, so they announce who gets the money to do conservation projects. And things like that. So we are a traditional earned media, which means we usually work with media contacts in TV, print, and radio. Because our world is so digital now, print is now online. So we do that as well, but not as much on the digital side. So not as much social media strategy. And we don't buy media, so we don't do any advertising.
And when this newly admitted student, Arjun, comes to this program, yes, Arjun, you will definitely hear the words earned media a lot.
Yes.
So it's the bread and butter of the industry.
Yes, and earned media, it means that you don't pay for an advertising slot. You use your persuasive writing to create a dialogue with journalists to show them why your topic is newsworthy. And so they write about it because they also find it important. And so in that sense, it's earned and you don't pay for them to write about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lexi. So another question that I get a lot from prospective students is about the capstone class. They want to know about the class, They want to know about people's capstone projects. And
Yes.
the title of yours is on the screen. So I'm going to let you read the title of yours.
Okay.
And then also why you gave it that particular title. I'm very
Yeah.
curious about. Yeah, and just tell us about the capstone class in general and your capstone project in particular.
Okay, so we'll start with the capstone project in general. My capstone project is titled Victim from Anita Hill to Harvey Weinstein, an examination of the effect that media frames have on stereotypes and perpetuating abuse. And I'll get into why the title is written that way in just a second. But the capstone project in general is your final ticket to your graduate degree, and it's a semester long class in which you create your own social science research paper. You do the research yourself, and then you write a paper discussing what you found from that research. And you can pick your own topic. It does have to have some sort of relation to the field of communication, which is so broad, which is why this course is really, really fun. And you see a lot of different capstone projects that are across the board. So at the time that I was writing my capstone, a lot of the Harvey Weinstein stuff had just unfolded.
Wow.
And it was really, really interesting to me, not only as a woman, but from the communication standpoint and how the news covered this topic. And so what I decided to do is look at the difference in news coverage, print news coverage around the Anita Hill and Justice Tom Clarence
Clarence Thomas.
situation, and
Yep.
yes, and in the 1990s, and then compare it to the current media frames and news coverage around the Harvey Weinstein situation. I wish that I had just been a year later and been able to do Anita Hill and then um I'm blanking on the names for some
Um,
reason.
yes.
Why am
Uh,
I blanking? The
the
most recent
the most recent
justice,
Supreme Court.
yes, hearing.
Wow. You know what? I think we purposefully
Yes,
have forgot.
exactly. Dr. Ford,
Dr.
thank
Ford
you,
was
Arjun.
Dr.
Yes.
Ford was the woman who came
So
forward. Yeah.
that would have been a much more clear comparison because it was a very similar situation. However, it had not happened yet, so I
Yeah.
chose to do the Harvey Weinstein Me Too movement. And so what I did was look at media coverage from both years, and basically the reason I chose victim, like written out as it's the dictionary in my title, is because I looked at how they defined the abuse. Um,
Oh.
so I looked at what words were used to describe the abuse or the harassment that was mentioned in the coverage. And what I found was, I found a lot of things, but one of the most compelling parts that I thought was that over 77 different terms or phrases were used to describe the sexual harassment or sexual abuse. And so that
Wow.
becomes an issue because it can actually desensitize what's really happening. It can just misinterpret what's happening. It can be easily misunderstood. And so the issue around that goes back to policy because each state is allowed to define sexual abuse or sexual harassment their own way,
Wow.
meaning that we have now 50 possible different definitions for what it is. So when you have national news coverage, it's a free for all. And so a lot of the terms that were used were such an understatement. Like they use the word proclivities and like things like that just really didn't get at the heart of the issue.
That is
So
heartbreaking.
yes, it was so enlightening. I looked at about 200 to 250 different news articles. So with 77 different terms or phrases that were used, that's a lot. And so basically my conclusion was that we have to either decide on a universal definition so that we can accurately describe what's happening. And if we can't come to a universal definition, then we need to have a broader conversation about this because there is a lot of gray area. And there was even a lot of times where the words sexual abuse were used when it was actually sexual harassment. But when you don't have a clear definition of what's going on, that's when things like this happen. So
Yeah.
it's still very prominent in the media, and I still come back to that paper because that paper could have been a 5-year project, I think. So yeah.
That is an incredible topic.
Yes.
Thank you. Actually, Arjun just said number one, asked a question. The capstone is an academic paper, right? And the answer is yes. And number two, is this project available to read? I'm very interested in reading the entire paper. That
Wow.
is between you and the author, Arjun. I can't answer that question for her.
So I actually just got an email from Professor Graff, and they're trying to put some of the capstones that have been finished up on the website, on the SOC website, so that prospective students like yourself can read it. I think I have a PDF copy that's copyrighted and everything. So if you want to send Layla your email, she can connect us, and I'd be happy to send it to you,
Amazing.
so that you can read it. Mind you, it is 5 pages, so it might be cap reading for you.
It's very generous of you, Lexi. Yeah, so Arjun, just shoot me an email and I'll get the two of you in touch. I know you have my email address, leela@american.edu. Wow, very cool.
Perfect.
So Lexi, you actually kind of answered the next question. You already did, but you can follow up on any thoughts that you maybe want to add. Tell me about your current job as Senior Account Executive at Greensmith Public Affairs.
Of course. Yeah, so I started as an account exec there when I first started and got a promotion to senior account exec, but my job still remains largely the same. There's a lot of account management because we're a small firm. I have my hands in all of the different pots, meaning that I deal with a lot of the deliverables and deadlines for each of our accounts. And we have, I want to say, at least 10 to 15 accounts. One of our accounts has kind of like programs that are all under the same umbrella but have different goals. So it can be a lot at times because we do a lot of event-driven media. So we're out on site at events. But it's fun, especially if you're a person who I don't know how to describe it any other way than this. But if you have like maybe a short attention span, or you like to jump around to different things, it's a great job for you, because you get to work on different things each day. So I can be on my education client for an hour, and then I'll jump to my environmental client for a couple hours, and then I'll work on a tech client. So your day is never the same, which is really fun. And sometimes, if you're writing, I get writer's block super easily. So being able to jump from account to account kind of helps relieve that. And so if I think of something later, I can always come back to it. Or if I can take a break and debrief on something else, and then, I'm rejuvenated when I go back to a different account. I will say that media relations is the heart and soul of what I do. So knowing who to go to, what they're writing about, what their personality is, where their interests lie, is really, really important. It's called media relations for a reason. It's not constantly throwing pitches at journalists and hoping that they stick. It's creating a dialogue with them. And so, you have to be up to date on what they write about. And, when they come to your event, you have to meet them, and you have to, once they know that it's a person behind a pitch and not just me trying to get my client in the news, it's a much different situation. And journalists receive, I've read studies where they receive over 300 emails a day that are pitches. So, it's not easy to get in touch with them. And I imagine it's super frustrating for them too. So, especially when you get 300 emails and the one that you decide to click on has nothing to do with what you write, I'm sure that's frustrating. So, just really knowing that it's a personal relationship and not always a transactional relationship. So, Yeah, and then of course writing. One of the best things about the program was learning how to write, whether that was formatting, knowing AP style like the back of my hand, or getting to the lead quicker, or being concise in my writing was so helpful and made me such a better writer for my job now. You know, like I said, if journalists get 300 pitches a day and yours is 300 words, they don't have the time realistically to read all of it. So get to the point quickly, make sure it's relevant, and, you know, tease them a little bit, make them want to respond to you to know what exactly they're going to get out of it. What is the value that you're providing them as a journalist? So yeah, that's kind of what I do. In addition, I manage most of the internal communications at Greensmith. Because we're small, there were a lot of things that I wish we had that we didn't, so I took the initiative to create them. One of my classes, my final classes at AU, was you had to create a uh, a communication product. You could do whatever you wanted, and so what I chose to do was an employee handbook for the firm. So I used the summer course to kind of research other employee handbooks that I liked, the style, the voice, the what was involved, what kind of details there were. So I made oh our
Is that your alarm going off? Oh, did I lose you, Lexi?
so I'm gonna mute myself really quick because it's super loud.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, you mute yourself. I know that you warned me that they were going to do some fire alarm
Yes.
testing at your place today.
I'm so sorry. This is what happens when you work from home.
No,
Usually it's really great, but instead, sometimes things like this happen.
you go ahead and mute
So
yourself.
I can finish on the chat if that's helpful.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mute yourself. Jump on chat.
Okay.
Lexi, I just want to say that I would not be surprised if you come back here in 5 or 10 years and you end up teaching in this program. You're such an excellent ambassador. Like, everything you say makes me want to explore an area further, like how you were talking about media relations. You're right, it is about relationships. In the field of communication, it is all about trust with individual people, people who are your sources, people in the media. And you're absolutely right. It is a relationship and it's not just spin. Oh yeah, you're fantastic. All right, so I'm just gonna jump to my final question. If you want to type some thoughts here, Lexi, what advice do you have for students who have been admitted to this graduate program and who will be starting this fall? And by the way, if any of the participants have any questions as well, now is definitely the time to type those as well. All right, so Lexi said, I would love to teach. It's actually one of my end goals. Even though I'm sure everyone can see that. Lexi also said, I love to talk about communications as an industry. It's so interesting. It really is. All right. So to answer that final question, Lexi said, some of my advice would be to think about what you want to do, even in an ideal situation, and see how the program can further that. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea of being specific. What is the kind of work environment you want afterwards? What are the issues you're passionate about? Yeah. Lexi also said, also research the courses and professors. They are your best resource. Couldn't agree more. In fact, I'm going to take us to the SOC website. And this is the home page. And then if you click on MA in Strategic Communication, and Lexi, you have nothing to apologize for with the lag in the chat. You're doing fantastic. I just want to show people where they can read about the faculty profiles. So here's the website for the MA in Strategic Communication. And here on the left-hand side, you can click on full-time faculty. See some of our rocks. Please feel free to read their bios, see what they've done, see what their expertise is in, and then email them as well, because there's their email addresses. And we also have some incredible rockstar adjunct faculty as well. Read the places they've worked at and where they've come from and the issues that they care about. That is absolutely the best way to get a feel for this program and to see if this is the right place for you. So, thank you for that suggestion, Lexi. Well, I'm going to give a beat for, oh, good, there we go. I thought you were going to say some more. I thought you were going to say some more, Lexi. Lexi said, also, don't be afraid to reach out to, don't be afraid to reach out to your ideal workplace and ask for informational interviews. This field is all about connections and relationships. Genius, Lexi, yes. Take advantage of being a student. Take advantage of being an AU student. Because you are an AU student, you can pick up the phone and call. I don't care if it's a giant PR firm. I don't care if it's your senator or your member of Congress, or if it's an international nonprofit you care about. Pick up the phone and tell them that you are a student at American University getting your master's in strategic communication, and you would like to meet with whoever you want to meet with and ask them about their career, pick their brain, ask them about a day in the life of their industry. That's the great way to find out if that's the right industry for you. Yeah, I just keep reading that sentence over and over. This field is all about connections and relationships. You're so right. Thank you, Lexi, for your time. It's been enlightening, and I'm so glad that you still have a strong connection to the School of Communication. I am delighted that you're always able and willing to talk to prospective students and share your amazing experiences. And thank you to the participants of this webinar. And Arjun, you asked some great questions. So anyone can follow up with me, Leela at American.edu is always the best way to get a hold of me. And thank you all for your time today. Lexi said, thank you. It's been so great. Feel free to reach out in the future. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a fantastic weekend, and we'll be in touch. Take care. Until next time.